Good morning, folks. Welcome to the third Advent Sunday's vlog on the ongoing crisis in the West with regard to cancel culture and its specific effects in America with this election. You've heard, undoubtedly, as I have, so many silly remarks from both sides of the equation in these past weeks of release the Kraken and earth-shattering new evidence to be revealed and all manner of prophetic pronouncements about something imminent to appear in the courts. And of course, nothing of the like has occurred. I want to talk about Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the man who wrote the Gulag Archipelago, which is largely the book that ended anyone's belief in communism. He revealed the utter damning evidence of how murderous and repressive that ideology was and its effects throughout the Soviet states and the Eastern Bloc countries. Solzhenitsyn, out of his experience in the gulags, came to a conclusion, and this is a conclusion that I wish to share with you today. You'll note that I'm speaking slowly and as exactly and precisely as I am able. And that conclusion was this: when confronted with such systems, you cannot think of yourself as innocent or the victim. You have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the perpetrators. Okay? Solzhenitsyn came to the conclusion that everybody was guilty and everybody is responsible. And that's a fascinating conclusion in the light of what's going on in the West today. Because we have limited constitutional democracies, largely throughout the Western world, the onus of such democracies is placed on the individual to help steer the ship of state, which is why constitutions limit such democracies to prevent the state from overreaching its authority and not impinging on the individual's inherent rights. When those constitutions were drafted, those rights were negative in that they provided us with a platform that could define what the government could not do to us. They did not provide us with an assurance of safety, clean water, a planet without harm or danger. And you see that this latter form of rights, which of course aren't rights at all, I do not have any right to anything that I must extract from you by force. Neither do you have a right to anything that I have that you must extract from me by force. And that force invariably ends up being by force of the state. That the state can force you to surrender your property, your money, your equity, your ability to do business freely and trade freely without unconscionable amounts of Byzantine restrictions on said liberty. If you want to have a peaceful society, if you want to create peace in the world, allow folks to trade without such restrictions. because when two parties are trading freely, they have very little interest in harming one another when they're profiting one another. This is why classical liberalism defines that as the great principle behind peaceful cooperation between nations. But as the government grows and those restrictions are increased, such peaceful cooperation becomes impossible. And this is why we're seeing this trade struggle with Great Britain now and the EU. Britain was forced into a situation where it had to sign over its inherent rights not to have its fisheries and its economy interfered with by Europe in the name of free trade, which is anything but. If they wanted free trade, of course, they would allow Britain to be free. So this is my assertion in this regard. It is only possible to trade freely with other people who are free. Otherwise, that trade becomes compelled, which is the very definition of not being free. And what we're seeing in America today with this cancel culture situation is an utter breakdown of freedom and liberty. So America has now become divided on the identical lines it was in 1861, where the Democrats are practicing identitarian politics, and the Democrats are foisting an enormous statist economic system on the U.S. run by an elite. So both economic freedom and liberty are placed at risk by such an economic system. I'll read to you what I posted on Facebook this morning. You give me a minute here, folks, and I'll get to it. Because so many folks on both sides of the aisle fail to understand the real nature of this crisis. And I will post a link below attached to this video where a program called Eye Opener speaks about this crisis and how America has indeed returned to an 1861 moment. So to that post, I stated the following. Here is confirmation of my observations. Many states have chosen sides in a situation not seen since the Civil War. At the heart of this crisis lies the two main issues which confronted America then and now. Number one, identity politics, where group identity is deemed to be more important than individual identity and liberty. Two, what type of economy America will have, one based on economic liberty or one based on enslaving mankind, where a wealthy socialist elite control the entire economy. This is the actual crisis that we're facing, that America is facing today, and indeed the whole West, because where America goes, so the rest of the West will go. But I will say it one more time. The answer to this is not Trump himself, because President Trump cannot change how people think. The answer to this crisis is being truly awakened to the understanding that each of us are sovereign and accountable. That is the great truth of Christianity. Ain't nobody going to answer to God but you, for you. You can't hide behind a priest or some hierarchical structure or some, Roman church that is going to give you salvation. You will be called to account before God himself at the judgment seat of Christ. And we are being called to account right now to rid society of the mental pathogen necessary to foment this socialist takeover of free, liberal constitution constitutional democracy. I hope you all have a great day, and on this third Advent that you think about praying a little about this crisis that we're facing, because it is up to you and it is up to me, which is why I will shout the truth as loudly and as emphatically and as clearly as I can. God bless you. Have a great Sunday.